The cold, metallic walls of the auction hall stood like silent sentinels, their gloom only broken by the harsh lighting above. The air was thick with the scent of fear and desperation, mingling with the distant hum of machinery. In the center of the room, rows of cages lined the walls, each holding a captive creature from a different corner of the galaxy. Their eyes were filled with dread, yet there was a flicker of hope in them. Hope that perhaps someone would see them as more than just property. In the last cage, a young alien girl stood trembling, her soft purple skin almost blending into the cold metal bars around her. Her eyes, large and round, were filled with a mixture of fear and defiance. She had been captured by slavers during a raid on her home planet. Her world had been destroyed in an instant, and now she was being auctioned off like a mere object. Her heart pounded in her chest as she tried to hold back the tears that threatened to spill. She had been through too much already, losing her family, her home, and now her freedom. The auctioneer, a gruff, towering alien with sharp, calculating eyes, stepped forward to begin the sale. His voice boomed through the hall as he addressed the crowd of wealthy bidders. His words were smooth. Practiced, he had done this countless times before. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a rare specimen today," he said, his eyes flicking toward the girl in the cage. "This young one is healthy, strong, and ready to serve. The starting bid is 100,000 credits. Do I hear 100,000? Crowd murmured, their eyes scanning the alien girl, assessing her worth. Some were interested in her for labor, others for pleasure. It didn't matter to them what she had endured. She was just another prize to be claimed. The girl's heart sank as she realized this was her fate now. She was nothing more than a commodity, her life controlled by whoever had the highest bid. A small, nervous sigh escaped her lips. She couldn't stand the thought of being owned, of becoming someone's property once again. She had been through enough in her short life to know that people only saw her for what they could take from her, not who she was. She closed her eyes. For a moment, wishing for a way out, anything to escape the nightmare she'd fallen into. The auctioneer's voice broke through her thoughts. 100,000 credits. Do I hear 150? The bidding began to heat up, and her eyes flicked nervously to the crowd. She couldn't bear the thought of being sold to someone who would treat her like a slave again. Was there anyone in this room who would see her as more than that? She doubted it. But then a strange thing happened. A voice, calm and steady, rose from the back of the room. 200,000, the man said, his tone firm but not forceful. The crowd fell silent for a moment, surprised by the sudden bid. The auctioneer's eyes darted to the back of the room where a human stood. He was tall, with dark hair and a stern, almost unreadable expression. His clothes were simple, yet there was an air of confidence about him and authority that stood out in the midst of the wealthy buyers surrounding him. 200,000, the man repeated, his eyes never leaving the girl's cage. His gaze was focused, intense, but there was something else in his eyes, something that didn't belong in a room like this. Compassion. It was a look the girl had never seen before, and it sent a shiver down her spine. The auctioneer quickly regained his composure. 200,000. Do I hear 250? He asked. But no one raised their hand. No one dared to outbid a human.
How that?
There were rumors about humans, how they were ruthless, how they had an empire that had crushed entire alien civilizations. But this man was different. He wasn't here for power, not like the others. Sold, the auctioneer declared, slamming his gavel down. The girl's heart skipped a beat. She was sold to the human. But why? Why had he bid on her? What did he want from her? She couldn't understand. There was no way he could want to rescue her. No one did that anymore. As the human stepped forward, the girl's mind raced. Her instincts screamed at her to run, to find a way to escape. But where could she go? She had nowhere left to run. She had lost everything. She looked up at the human, meeting his gaze for a brief moment before quickly looking away. "Come," the human said, his voice low and steady. "You're safe now." He extended his hand. But the girl hesitated, unsure whether to trust him. Was this some kind of trick? Was he just like the others, pretending to offer kindness while planning to exploit? Her past experiences, made it hard to trust anyone, especially a human. Yet there was something about him that felt different. Something about his presence made her want to believe him. To hope that maybe, just maybe, the cold, unfeeling walls of the transport shuttle hummed as it sped through the emptiness of space. The alien girl sat stiffly in the corner, her eyes glued to the small window, watching the stars streak past. Outside the universe was vast and endless, but inside, she felt trapped, unsure of what awaited her. The human who had bought her sat across from her, his face expressionless, his eyes scanning a datapad. She could feel the tension in the air, a palpable uncertainty that matched her own. Her hands were bound, not by chains, but by the very doubt and fear that had taken over her since that moment in the auction room. The way he had looked at her with kindness instead of ownership confused her. Humans weren't supposed to be like that, were they? Why did you buy me? She asked suddenly, her voice breaking the silence. The question hung between them, heavy and full of meaning. She didn't want to sound desperate, but she needed to know. Was he just another master? In disguise? Was he going to turn her into something she wasn't? Something less than human? The human didn't look up from his datapad immediately. Instead, he took a long, measured breath, as though weighing the right words to say. He set the pad down, gently, and looked at her. His gaze was calm even, but there was a faint weariness in his eyes. I didn't buy you to enslave you, he said, his voice steady. I bought you because I need your help. The girl's eyes narrowed. Help? What could I possibly do for you? He leaned back in his seat, his fingers drumming lightly on the armrest. You're more important than you realize, he continued, his voice almost a whisper now, as if speaking the truth aloud might make it more real. There's a war coming, one you can't even begin to imagine. And in this war, you're the key. To saving more lives than you know? Her heart skipped a beat. The idea of a war, a conflict between powerful forces, was not foreign to her. She had seen her planet burn because of such wars. But why would she be the key? She was just an alien girl, a slave in the eyes of the universe. Nothing special. Nothing that could change the outcome of a war. Why me? She asked, her voice shaking despite her best efforts to sound strong. The human stared at her for a long moment, as though deciding how much to reveal. You have abilities that you're not aware of yet, he said quietly, and I'm here to help you unlock them. Her confusion deepened. Abilities? What could a captured slave like her possibly have that could be of any use in a galactic war? Her mind raced, but she held her tongue. This human, whoever he was, seemed to know things she didn't. There had to be more to the story. Abilities, she repeated slowly, unsure of what to think. What kind of abilities? The man's expression softened. He stood and walked over to her, his boots making a soft echo against the metal floor. He knelt down in front of her, his eyes level with hers. You have the power to heal, he said, almost reverently. Not just physical wounds, but deeper. More dangerous things that could save lives. Things that could change the course of a war. The girl stared at him, stunned. She couldn't understand. You're saying I can heal people? He nodded. Not just people. Anything. Anything that's broken, damaged. But you've never been trained to control it. That's why I bought you. Her heart pounded. Was this some kind of joke? She was a slave, a victim of an empire that had taken everything. From her? How could she, of all beings, possess such power? But the look in his eyes, so full of sincerity, made her hesitate. Maybe, just maybe, there was more to her than she realized. But why would I help you? She asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. Why would I trust you after everything I've been through? I don't owe you anything. The human sighed, standing up and taking a step back. His face hardened for just a moment, as though he was weighing the consequences of telling her everything. But then, with a glance at her, his resolve seemed to soften. You don't owe me anything, he said quietly, his voice full of honesty. I didn't buy you to make you my servant or my tool. I bought you because I know the universe has already... The transport ship drifted silently through the void of space, a lonely speck of light against the vastness of the galaxy. Inside, the girl sat in the corner of the small quarters the human had provided her, staring out at the stars. She had been given food, fresh water, and a bed, things she hadn't had in what felt like forever. Yet despite the comforts, a knot of doubt twisted in her stomach. There was something about this human, this stranger who had bought her, that felt off. He had said she was special, that her abilities could change the course of a war. But how could that be true? She was just a girl, no, different from any of the others sold in the auction. Her past had been filled with pain, and she had never been told she had any powers. She had never been anything more than a tool for others to use. How could this human see something in her that she couldn't even see in herself? The girl glanced up at the door, half expecting to see the human standing there. The silence in the room felt suffocating, oppressive, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The human had given her food, yes, and he had spoken to her kindly, but she knew nothing about him. Who was he really? What was his true purpose? And more importantly, why had he chosen her? Suddenly the door slid open and the human walked in. He looked as composed as ever, his eyes calm but sharp, his movements controlled. He held something in his hand, a small device with glowing lights, but he didn't immediately explain what it was. Instead, he leaned against the wall, watching her with that same steady gaze. "I know you're still unsure about me," he said after a moment, breaking the silence. "I don't expect you to trust me right away, but I need you to understand something." Girl frowned, her suspicion growing. "What's that?" He took a deep breath, his gaze never leaving hers. "I didn't just bring you on this ship for a mission. You and I are bound by something much greater than a simple contract. You have the power to heal more than you realize. Comes with a price." Her heart skipped. "A price? What kind of price?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pressed a button on the device in his hand. And suddenly the walls of the small room flickered, revealing a hidden projection on the far side. The image was of a planet far away, and it looked peaceful, green landscapes, rolling hills, cities filled with life. But then the image shifted, showing destruction, ships burning in the sky, massive explosions, and the chaos of battle. "This is what's coming," the human continued, his voice taking on a harder tone. "A war that will tear apart everything. And you're the key to stopping it. But you must understand, you will have to unlock that power within you. It's the only way we can win." The girl watched the image, feeling a strange chill run down her spine. "What are you saying? You want me to fight in this war?" He shook his head, his expression serious. "No, I'm asking you to help heal it. The damage, the destruction, the lives lost. You can save them, but only if you trust me enough to unlock your true potential." Her mind was reeling. Heal? How could? She'll heal a war. She had never been taught anything like that. She had barely survived her own existence, let alone the horrors of a galaxy at war. But the way the humans spoke, with such conviction, made her hesitate. Maybe she could do something. Maybe she had more inside her than she ever thought possible. But as the thought began to take root, another feeling crept in. The uncertainty. The fear. What if he was lying? What if he had a hidden agenda? What if this was all some cruel game to use her as a pawn in his own plan? There was too much she didn't know, too much she couldn't understand. The transport ship drifted in silence, its engines humming softly as it made its way toward the unknown. The girl stood at the ship's viewing window, her eyes fixed on the stars, her mind a swirl of conflicting thoughts. She had made the choice. To trust the humans, something she'd never thought she'd do again after everything she'd endured. But now, that trust was being tested. The human had promised her a chance at freedom, but what if freedom came at a price she couldn't afford? "Are you ready?" The human's voice broke through her thoughts, steady and calm, but there was an edge of urgency in it. She turned to face him, her heart racing. They were on the verge of something big, something that would change everything. But she still had questions, still had doubts. "Ready for what?" The human stepped into the room, his expression serious, his eyes hard with determination. "We're heading to a place where you'll be able to help. There's a base on a distant planet completely under the radar. There, we'll be able to train you, teach you how to control your power. But there's more to it than that. I need you to Understand something. We're not just running from the Empire. We're fighting back. Her brow furrowed. Fighting back? She repeated, her voice a mixture of disbelief and curiosity. Against what? Against everything that's kept us under their control, the human replied. The Empire has been ruling the galaxy for centuries, but there are those like me who won't accept it anymore. We've been waiting for the right moment to strike, and you're that moment. The girl swallowed hard, the weight of his words sinking in. She had never known much about the Empire, only that it had destroyed her world, her people. But now, hearing the humans speak of revolution, of rebellion, she felt something stirred deep inside her, a fire that had been buried for so long, a desire to fight back. But what about me? She asked, her voice trembling. How do I fit into all of this? The human stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. You're more important than you know. Your healing power can change the course of this war, but only if you learn how to use it. And that's where I come in. I'm not just here to protect you, I'm here to teach you. You're not alone in this anymore. The girl's mind raced. She had never asked for this, never wanted to be a part of someone's war, but the human had promised her freedom. Could she really turn her back on the chance to make a difference? To be more than a slave? To finally have control over her own fate? I don't know if I'm ready for all this, she admitted, her voice small. I've spent my whole life running, hiding, but I've never had control over anything. The human gave her a small, encouraging smile. I understand. But that's why we need to act now. If we don't, the Empire will crush everything we care about. You're the key to stopping them. A silence fell between them as the gravity of his words settled in. The girl stared at him, her heart pounding. Was this really her chance? Was she strong enough to take on something this massive? She had nothing left to lose, but was that enough? Okay, she said at last, her voice firm, though her hands were still trembling. I'll do it, but you have to promise me one thing. Human raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What's that? Promise me that I won't lose myself in all of this. I've already lost so much, I can't lose who I am too. His expression softened, and for the first time she saw a flicker of something like understanding in his eyes. I promise, he said. Quietly, you'll never lose yourself. I won't let that happen. She nodded, taking a deep breath. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger, but she had made her choice. She wasn't going to run. The cold winds of the barren planet whipped around them as the small shuttle touched down with a soft, controlled thud. The girl stood at the shuttle's exit, her boots crunching against the frost-covered ground. Behind her, the human checked the equipment one last time, making sure everything was in order. Their mission was clearer: wish the hidden base, train, and prepare. But as the shuttle doors slid open, something in the air felt wrong. The girl's instincts were on edge. Her heart thudded in her chest. She had been through too much to ignore that sense of danger. The human seemed unaffected, though. Out confidently surveying their surroundings, the planet's gray skies hanging heavily above them. The base they needed to reach was still miles away, tucked in the hills to the east. But the real challenge wasn't the distance, it was the journey itself. Stay close, the human said, glancing back at her. There was an edge to his voice now, a warning she hadn't heard before. We've got company. Her stomach tightened. Company who? She hadn't sensed anything before, not until now. He didn't answer right away, instead motioning for her to follow. They'll be here soon. Just keep up. The girl didn't question him. She didn't have time to. The wind howled louder now, but something about the human's demeanor, his tense body language, spoke volumes. It wasn't just worried. He was preparing for something big. She quickened her pace to keep up, glancing nervously over her shoulder. As they moved further into the cold wilderness, the feeling of being watched only grew stronger. Every step felt like it was taking them deeper into enemy territory. The girl's mind raced. Who were they running from? Who knew they were here? She had heard the stories of the Empire's relentless hunters, alien assassins, mercenaries trained to track down anyone who posed a threat to their rule. But the human had promised her safety. He had promised that he would protect her. How long before they catch up to us? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Not long, the human replied. Grimly, they're fast, and they know this terrain better than we do. The girl's heart pounded in her chest, but she wasn't just scared, she was angry. She had already lost so much: her planet, her family, her freedom, and now she was being hunted again. By whom? By the Empire. By mercenaries hired to hunt her down? Whatever the reason, she wouldn't be a victim again. She couldn't be. They reached a small ridge overlooking a wide valley. The human stopped, crouching behind a boulder. He motioned for the girl to do the same. She obeyed, kneeling beside him, her eyes scanning the horizon. Stay low, the human whispered. We can't afford to be seen. The girl nodded, her body pressed tightly against the cold stone. She could see nothing, only the empty valley below, the frozen ground stretching out before them. Her senses were on high alert, every sound amplified by the eerie silence around them. Then she heard it. A faint noise at first, like a distant hum, then growing louder engines. Not just one ship, but several. She felt a chill run down her spine. The human was right. They were being hunted. How many? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. 3, the human muttered. And they'll stop at nothing to catch us. The girl's pulse quickened. 3. She had never faced anything like this before, but she had to do something. She couldn't just hide while the human fought for their lives. She had to help. I'm not staying here, she said firmly, her hands clenched into fists. I won't just sit and wait to be captured. The human looked at her, his expression unreadable. For a moment she thought he might protest, might try to stop. The day had turned to night, and the cold wind howled across the barren landscape of the planet. The human and the girl had made their way deeper into the wilderness, their footsteps muffled by the thick snow underfoot. The pursuit was still behind them, but for now, they had evaded capture. But the girl couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. There was a truth she hadn't been told, something the human wasn't sharing. She was starting to feel it. They reached a secluded cave hidden beneath a rocky overhang. Just as the last remnants of daylight vanished, the human turned to her, his expression darker than she had ever seen it before. The tension between them had been building since the moment they had first set foot on this planet. But tonight something felt different. I need to tell you something, the human said, his voice low, barely above a whisper. Something important. The girl's heart quickened. She had suspected this moment would come. The moment when the human would reveal the truth, the full extent of the plan he had been so secretive about. The doubt that had lingered in her mind now bloomed into something more dangerous, more certain. She was beginning to see that she had been nothing more than a pawn in his game all along. What is it? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Though it trembled with an unease she couldn't shake. The human sat down beside a crackling fire, his eyes reflecting the flames. His hands, which had always seemed so sure and controlled, now fidgeted, betraying a rare vulnerability. The girl, still standing, watched him with growing suspicion. Before I found you, I was part of something bigger, he began, his voice heavy with the weight of the confession. Something I didn't want you to know. The truth is, I'm not just a soldier. I was part of a rebellion, a secret faction that's been planning to take down the Empire. For years, but I've been on my own for too long. The rebellion, he stopped abruptly, a pained expression crossing his face. The girl took a step forward, her mind spinning. A rebellion? Is this the truth? Had he been leading her toward this without her knowledge? What do you mean on your own? She asked, her voice tinged with both anger and confusion. Saying you've been using me this whole time? I thought you bought me to protect me, to save me. I didn't buy you to protect you. Not in the way you think, he interjected quickly, his voice sharp. I bought you because the rebellion. Well, it's not just about freedom, it's about survival. Your power, the one you're only beginning to understand, it's the key to everything. The girl stood frozen. Everything she thought she knew was unraveling before her eyes. She had always been told that she had something special within her, but to hear it come from the human made her wonder if she had been deceived. Was she just another tool in a greater war she didn't even understand? You're telling me that the rebellion has been using me all along? Her words felt like acid, burning her tongue. You never once told me the truth.
All this time.
You've just been feeding me lies. The human winced, looking away from her. His voice was softer when he spoke again. I'm sorry. Didn't mean for it to go this way. The truth is, the moment I found you, I knew what you were capable of. You're not just a slave anymore. You're more powerful than I ever imagined, and the Empire, will stop at nothing to control you. The girl's mind was racing. This wasn't just about her anymore. She wasn't a victim to be rescued. She was a weapon, a pawn in a battle far. The cave was quiet, save for the faint crackling of the fire that flickered between them, casting long shadows across the cold walls. The girl sat across from the human, her mind swirling with the weight of the decisions she had to make. Had been on the run for days, and each passing moment felt like a step deeper into a world she didn't fully understand. The truth was out now. There was no going back. She wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was part of something much bigger, something that could change the galaxy. But did she even want to be part of it? The human's eyes were locked on her, waiting for her to speak. He'd given her the choice: fight with him, learn to control her power, and take on the Empire, or walk away, risking everything to live a life of solitude. It was a cruel choice, but it was hers. And the truth gnawed at her every second. She had been a pawn in someone else's game her whole life, sold, traded, manipulated, but this time, her destiny was in her hands. Why do you keep asking me? To fight? She finally said, her voice strained, as if the weight of the question was crushing her chest. I didn't ask for any of this. You didn't buy me to protect me. You bought me because I was a weapon to you. Do you think I've forgotten that? The human's expression softened. It expected her to be angry. Anger in her words was more than that. It was the pain of betrayal. She had trusted him, even after everything. But the truth had shattered that trust. He couldn't blame her for it. You're right, he said, his voice low. I didn't buy you to protect you. I bought you because you're the only one who can stop this. But I've never asked you to be a weapon. I'm asking you to be something better. I'm asking you to choose. She looked down at her hands, trying to steady the whirlwind of emotions that threatened to overwhelm her. How could she choose? How could she decide to fight for a cause when she had nothing left to fight for? Her people were gone. Her home was nothing but ashes. The Empire had taken everything from her, and now she was supposed to stand against them. You talk about saving people, she said, her voice barely a whisper. But you don't know what it's like to lose everything, to have your entire existence erased in a blink of an eye. I'm not a soldier. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who wants to survive. The human didn't answer immediately, stood up, slowly walking over to the edge of the cave where the wind howled through the cracks. He stared out into the darkness, his silhouette outlined against the starlit sky. I know what it's like to lose, he said after a long silence. I've lost my family, my comrades, everything I ever believed in, but I kept going. I kept fighting, because I knew that if I didn't, others would suffer the same fate. And I couldn't live with that. I won't ask you to be something you're not, but I will ask you to choose, not just for you, but for everyone who's ever been taken, crushed, and forgotten by the Empire. The girl's heart beat faster as his words sank in. She had always been told that her life was worth nothing, that she was a tool to be used and discarded. She had never been given the chance to choose her own path, to take control of her own destiny. But now, standing here with the cold night surrounding her and the fire flickering in front of her, she felt something stir inside her. A tiny spark of something she hadn't felt in so long.